This is Lara Logan. She's a 60 Minutes reporter, or she used to be, at least. She has completely lost her mind. She's full-blown QAnoner now. And some of the things that she says are, I don't even know what word to use. Schmoobly-gong? That feels right. Let's talk about her. This is Lara Logan on Stu Peters' TV show. Stu Peters is a full-blown, self-avowed, open Nazi. So listen what she says here. By the way, this one is an old one. I'm just working up to what the crazy stuff she said, because I can't put the crazy stuff at the start because I get demonetized. So I have to take it. I got to ease you into this. All right, listen to this.
We live in a nation of potential collaborators. And if we don't reduce the price of standing up, if we don't make it less costly and encourage more people to stand.
Stand for what, I hear you asking? This is all anti-vax BS. She believes that Fauci created the virus in a lab specifically to hurt people or something, and that everybody around her, her neighbors and everyone, is looking for an opportunity to turn her into, like, the government for not getting vaccinated. Like, get a grip.
Stand. That is what lies ahead for all of us. When they come and say, who were the ones who voted for Trump? Who were the ones with Trump signs in their front porch?
Who is going to do this? Who is they?
Who were the Proud Boys? Who were the Oath Keepers? When they come to, who wouldn't comply?
Who were the journalists?
Are you kidding me right now? Really? This is coming out of the mouths of people who voted for Donald Trump, who are avowed open Trump supporters. Like, that's their whole personality. And Donald Trump talks about making it easier to prosecute journalists. You got to be joking.
Who are the journalists who didn't get a vaccine? When they come for us, our neighbors will be raising their hands to lead the killing squads to our doors.
This is just, dude, it's so, I don't even know what to say about it. It's insane. Love the screenshot, though. Top tier. Anyway, point is, she's unglued from reality, straight up. Now let me walk you into the new conspiracy theory, because we're, a couple minutes into the video, and I feel that we're out of the territory where it's, possible to be demonetized for it. She had a conversation with Russell Brand, and I censored a lot of it because, oh my God, it's psychotic and really messed up. Listen to this, what she had to say to Russell Brand here.
So now we've got kids growing up thinking that it's possible for boys to have children.
I don't know what she's talking about. She's confusing sex and gender. Nobody believes that biologically, like people with gametes that match up with a male, nobody believes that that person can get pregnant. I mean, is that the problem? Literally nobody thinks that, okay?
Right? Men can give birth and menstruate and can chest feed as opposed to breastfeed. Well,
nobody uses that term. The first time I heard the term chest feed was from Lauren Boebert. Why would anybody say chest feed instead of breastfeed? I mean, men have breasts too. What is wrong with these people? They're just like making up. I was watching a Dark Matter 2525 video recently. He's pretty cool. Haven't watched him in a while. I figured I'd dip my toes in there. A little shout out. Anyway, he was talking about how he used to, I'm trying to think about how to put this. He was talking about how some people look for things to be upset about. Like, there are examples of, atheist content creators throughout time who have looked for any cross necklace on TV shows or any example of them saying a prayer before a meal or whatever. Just look for any little thing and make it the biggest deal out of it, right? That is what these people are doing about, trans things, left-leaning things, left-leaning anything. Except not only are they complaining about like a little cross necklace or something that someone's wearing, they're complaining. It's not even on that level. Now they're complaining about things that didn't happen at all. They're just making things up to be upset about. Like now, Lara Logan isn't the atheist complaining that somebody's wearing a cross necklace. Now she's an atheist claiming that there are like Christian death squads out hunting for atheists, going door to door with guns and like, taking them out on a 1-by-1 basis. Like, on a neighborhood scale. It's completely fabricated. This is not happening. Nobody is saying chest feed. Okay, nobody is saying babies. I heard that recently. Instead of saying babies, somebody like Lara Logan, I don't remember, it wasn't her, but some right winger is complaining that people are saying babies instead of babies. It's so stupid. It's comical now. Literally nobody is doing that. Not one human being. Okay. Oh my God. Anyway, that's the level that she's at right now with this.
Right? Men can give birth and menstruate and can chest feed as opposed to breastfeed.
Nobody says that.
Well, when you go to the darker realm of that, Russell,
the darker realm,
if you go into the darker realm on the dark web and you go beyond what we see on the surface in our society, you will now find images, and I know this through the counter-trafficking work that
She does not do counter-trafficking work. She's a QAnoner and spreads QAnon conspiracy theories and calls herself an anti-human trafficking blah, blah, blah. She's completely full of shit. You know, there are actual, I mean, I'm going to get to the video, but I have to lead up to this, okay? There are actual organizations that deal with human trafficking, like real human trafficking. And QAnoners, like, drew a lot of attention to the human trafficking problem. And these organizations that deal with it, the government organizations, these nonprofits, specifically said, please stop reporting this because it's flooding our systems and making it harder to investigate actual real cases of human trafficking. One of the big QAnon claims is that 400,000 kids go missing every year in the United States. That's not true. It's just made up. I don't remember exactly what it is. It's been a while since I looked, but it's in the hundreds of thousands of reported cases of like missing kids. But when investigated, it's found that those reports included ones that were closed, like the kid was recovered. Like little Timmy wandered off while his mom's looking at like earrings at Claire's, and he climbs into the Baskin-Robbins tub to eat ice cream, and she's looking all over for him. The cops come, they write a report, and they turn around, and there he is in the ice cream tub. And so, you know, the report's already written. It counts toward her number of 400,000, or QAnon's number. Also, the vast majority of those were runaway teens that were in really bad situations and just left their house and never came back. I guess you could say I was one of those. I mean, there wasn't a police report on me, obviously, but I left when I was a teenager. Yeah, I mean, multiple times I actually left my house and just went somewhere else because I was dealing with my dad. And I did have the cops called on me a few times for leaving. So multiple police reports in a year on me for just like not being there. You know, I was reported missing or whatever. That's just one basic example. Now, how many people actually go missing in the US? It's hard to quantify, but there are organizations that have tried. How many children go missing in the US every year? I don't remember what the number is, but it's about 500,000 children go missing every year, but nearly all of them are found. 90% of them are runaways or parental abductions. There are about 3,000 attempted snatchings per year. That's what I'm reading. Again, this is really difficult information to find. I will do more research and I'll put it on screen if you're curious after the fact, like when I'm doing the editing for this. But the point is that let's say 90% are found or recovered otherwise. Like the kid was a runaway teen, it was a parental abduction or something like that. So we're looking at, say, 500,000 abductions per year or kids going missing. So we're looking at 50,000 kids that are not accounted for. That is a far cry from 400,000. That's the point, okay? So this whole human trafficking work she does thing, this is just made up nonsense. She doesn't do human trafficking work. She pretends to be some kind of a justice warrior for missing kids when she makes up like what she's about to say.
That I do and the people I work with, you will now find images of toddlers who are pregnant.
Toddlers that are pregnant. Really. I mean, this should tell you all you need to know about her. She's completely full of shit. Every word out of her mouth practically is nonsense. Does she know how the human body works? You know what's really disturbing? The fact that she thought about it in the first place. That she sat there and thought to herself, and she didn't see this. She didn't. Was she told it by somebody? I don't know. But somebody, her, I assume, sat there and thought to themselves, I bet that there are toddlers that are getting pregnant. Why would somebody even think about that? Whoever is sitting here thinking about this needs to be investigated, unironically. This is real disturbing. This is like Matt Walsh famously saying there were like millions of kids on puberty blockers or on hormone treatment or whatever it was. Millions. And it turned out to be like 3,000 or something. I don't even remember. It's been a while since I looked that up. Okay, so tell me more about these fictitious pregnant toddlers. God, she's disgusting.
Of toddlers who are pregnant. Because this ideology is completely and utterly hedonistic and dark and evil and satanic. This is pure evil.
Oh, I guess yeah, okay. I cut out the next part because this is too disturbing. But she said, I'm not even going to, I'll leave it at that. I uploaded a full breakdown of the video on my Owen Morgan Unfiltered channel if you want to watch the whole thing there. It's just Russell Brand and Lara Logan talking, just like a one-part thing. But I'm like really disturbed by some of the that comes out of QAnon. Like, who comes up with this stuff, honestly? I mean, she's been on the far right for a while, and she's been spreading far right conspiracies for a long, long time. It's really sad because she was a legit reporter for a long time. She was like trustworthy. And then she busts out stuff like this.
Because when one police officer sees another police officer under attack, what's going to happen? He's going to escalate, even though their job is to de-escalate. And on the same
I think there's a conversation with Charlie Kirk, by the way.
Side, on the other side, where you have protesters, when you see women,
she's talking about January 6th.
Being punched in the face or hit in the face, when you are standing around innocently, you have no idea what is happening way up ahead. You have no idea that there are paid provocateurs in the crowd who are picking a fight with police, and out of nowhere, you're being hit with flashbangs.
So she's saying on January 6th, paid provocateur, Antifa was paid to go to the front of the crowd and start with police so that the police would attack the innocent Trump supporters at the back. Come on.
And all kinds of munitions that cause real damage. And these are called less than lethal munitions. And they're called that for a reason. They're not called non-lethal, Charlie.
That's true, yes. There are things such as less lethal, like, I don't understand.
Because they become lethal when used...
Like rubber bullets? Yeah, they're very, very painful. And if shot in the eye, it'll kill you, okay? I don't know what point she's making.
When used in certain circumstances. So when you look at that West Tunnel where so much of the violence happened, when those munitions are used in that environment, which is a confined space where nobody can go, the police are pushing from one side, and there were people whose job was to push from the other side.
Provocateurs, right. Antifa, totally.
To capture people in between. What they're doing is they're hoping that people get injured, and they're hoping that people get killed, because that feeds the narrative.
Oh my God.
So an information warfare...
Look, this is really interesting to me, okay? I'm going to make an argument to you, and you tell me if you agree or disagree in the comments. QAnon is a rebranded Nazi death cult. Now, let me lay out the argument for you. In 1939, Germany had been working its way up to war for like 4 or 5 years at that point. Like Hitler had already been revving up the war machine, been ordering a bunch of airplanes, training pilots in secret areas in like Russia and things like that without anybody knowing. And he was building a military through paramilitary groups like kind of like the Proud Boys, like how the Proud Boys operate through the brown shirts and the steel helmets, a veteran group. Anyway, when the day came that they wanted to wage war, Hitler had planned it out that he was going to invade Poland first. So what he did was found a few cases of Germans being persecuted on an individual basis in Poland. And if he couldn't find many, then he would fabricate some. This happened. The German government, Goebbels, Hitler, and others, fabricated fake attacks on Germans in Poland. Like some guy got his arm broken or something. And they claimed they had to invade to protect the German people in Poland because the Polish were like mistreating Germans. Blame it on the other person. When you do something wrong, blame it on them, saying you're doing this to protect yourself. Claim self-defense. That's my first level in this argument, my first tier, if you will. Now, here's another one. In 1902, there's a document called the Protocols of the Elders of Zion that was released piece by piece in newspapers across Tsarist Russia. A guy, I don't remember the guy's name now, but he compiled it into a book, a full book. And the document basically claimed that there was a group of Jewish elites, elders, that pulled strings like puppet masters all around the world, and they were trying to take control of world governments by replacing the people at the top of these 7 areas of society, like business, the economy, the government, the military, so on and so forth, religion, family. It's called the, now Christians call it the 7 Mountains Mandate. Christians have taken that. I mean, Christian nationalists took that and implemented, like the plan that Nazis claimed Jews were doing. Christian nationalists of today took that plan and ran with it. That's what they are doing now. Anyway, Protocols of the Elders of Zion, it laid out this whole thing. Now, how was this document discovered, I hear you asking? They claimed that they found it on a dead Jewish soldier. Instructions for how to take over the government and society. The Jewish plan for world domination found on a dead Jewish soldier. Fascinatingly, this is during the BLM protests, not during like January 6th, but here's a picture of a contract, quote unquote, that was supposedly discovered, quote unquote, on a black rioter during the George Floyd protests. It's a contract between this supposed rioter and George Soros. Not for nothing, George Soros is a Jewish guy that survived the Holocaust. I'm just, floating that. Here's another picture of, I think maybe the back. Rioters issued orders from Democrats. A rioter accidentally dropped this. Oops. Does this sound familiar to anybody else? QAnon is a rebranded Nazi death cult. That's what it is. I'm telling you. And look, they even faked like signatures here of George Soros. My point is that the Nazis used strategies as old as time. This stuff has been around since forever. Blame your enemy for what you are doing. Claim that they are hurting you so that you can be justified in attacking. Things like that. Just make up whole cloth about them. This is stuff that's existed for thousands of years, and it was all condensed into one overarching ideology in Germany in the 30s, certainly before that too, but the Germans did it, and now we're seeing it repeated again by Lara Logan, Russell Brand, and honestly now Joe Rogan. I didn't expect him to go that far right, but here we are, and a bunch of others. I'm telling you, rebranded Nazi death cult is what we're dealing with here. They probably don't even realize it, honestly. They're probably just as big of suckers as anybody else in this whole system, being suckered by the propagandists that are pulling their strings and being suckered by the propagandists that are taking advantage of them and making fools out of them. I'm just not sure if Lara Logan is a sucker or a propagandist. Listen to this one. This is from July 13th, 2024. No, actually, I'm not sure when this one is from, but it's from a while ago, a couple of years ago, I think, at least.
Back a little bit further. Who got Jimmy Carter elected?
Dude, is she in a car right now? I think she's sitting in a car.
If you remember, he was elected because of the Iranian hostage crisis, right? And what did they do? The CIA got their friends in Iran to make sure that those hostages were not released. And that was the number one issue on which he came to power.
Okay, wow. This is an interesting conspiracy theory. So she claims that the deep state, quote unquote, this secret cabal of people at the top who are pulling strings like puppet masters, got Jimmy Carter elected. He was a one-term president. Who was the president when Jimmy Carter was running for office? I don't remember. Nixon? Was it Nixon? Oh, no. Okay. God, I forgot that Gerald Ford took over for Nixon. For some reason, I thought he took over for someone who had been assassinated. No, it went Nixon, 1969 to 74. Then Gerald Ford, 74 to 77. his VP, and then Jimmy Carter, 77 to 81. Nixon and Gerald Ford were president while Carter was running for office, and you're telling me that the CIA, directly responsible to the president, like that's the direct line of communication, like he controls the CIA, you're telling me that under his direction, he instructed the CIA to make it more difficult for a Republican to win? You're telling me that under a Republican administration, they instructed the CIA to make it more likely that a Democrat would win the presidency? Really? Yeah, this is populism. I was watching the Young Turks not too long ago. They're right-wing now, sadly. I hate to say that, but Cenk was saying he's a populist, and a populist is somebody that wants things that are popular. No, it's not. That is not what a populist is. A populist is somebody that appeals to the lower to middle classes and creates a divide kind of between the proletariat and the bourgeoisie, basically. There's a divide between the rich and the poor. And, the more populist you go, the wider that divide gets. Right-wing populists, taken to its logical extreme, right-wing populism leads to Nazi Germany. Taken to its logical extreme, left-wing populism leads to Russia, like Soviet Union, where they basically killed their entire aristocratic class. Middle class and up were all killed or jailed or whatever. And everybody all the way up the chain came from the lower middle classes, or in some cases, the middle class. That's what populism, taken to its logical extreme, leads to. Now, I'm not opposed to the idea that there are people at the top, like the Koch brothers, that are setting out to control things and make conditions better for themselves. I totally agree with that. But to make your entire identity into this and go to the absolute extreme, the way that Lara Logan is, you've got to keep yourself in check, man. Like, holy Christ on a cracker. And by the way, just for the record, you know where the word cabal comes from? It comes from the term Kabbalah, which is the Jewish, it's basically like a form of meditation, a Jewish form of meditation. There are some mystical claims about it, like old Kabbalah masters could, perform telekinesis and mind reading or whatever other stupid thing. But, that knowledge was lost to time. But if you become a Kabbalah master, then maybe you can, whatever. Yeah, it's just complete nonsense, obviously. But, it's a form of meditation, and meditation's generally good. So, okay. The word cabal was based off of Kabbalah. The point is, even the language used by the right-wingers goes back to anti-Semitic nonsense. Rebranded Nazi death cult. I'm telling you. Anyway, keep listening to Lara Logan here.
Issue on which he came to power. So when you start to unravel these relationships, what you find is that there are factions in every part of the world, which may explain why people like, for example, Adolf Hitler, before the Second World War, where did he go? He went all over the Islamic world, right?
Before the Second World War? What are you talking about? Hitler went all over the Islamic world? I don't remember that. I know when he was in control, he couldn't go to Palestine or Israel. He couldn't invade because there's a big sea between there and Germany. So he would either need aircraft carriers to bring his tanks and his jets and everything over to do a full-scale invasion, or he would have to go through like 16 other countries to get there, Turkey and everything else. So Hitler knew that he couldn't make his way to Palestine. So what he did was instead he funded missionaries, Christian missionaries, funded a trip there for them to set up shop, create churches, and work with local Muslims to destroy the reputation of Jews in the area. And he actually paid for that out of his own pocket, to my understanding. I'm getting this information from a book called And the Witnesses Were Silent by Wolfgang Gerlach. Anyway, that's what I know of it. I don't know what she's talking about with him going all over the Muslim world.
He was making his deals. And so these relationships are really represented today in these global institutions. And, it wasn't so long.
His His values represented in global institutions?
And so these relationships are really represented today in these global institutions. And, it wasn't so long ago, maybe 20 years ago.
You know why? I'm sorry. I know I keep stopping. We're going to step back and listen to it in its whole context. But you know why, like, Muslims in the Middle East hate Jews so much? Two reasons. One, because Israel claims to be a Jewish state and as such believes in the supremacy of one ethno-religious group over another, effectively an apartheid state, mistreats Middle Easterners, Arabs, Muslims and things, mistreats them terribly within its borders, keeps fighting offensive wars to take more territory and claiming that they're defensive wars while still claiming territory. That's how they got the Golan Heights and things like that. That's one reason, because Israel, it's making a complete ass of itself on a world stage. I mean, that's not even the right term for it, but they're awful right now, what they're doing. And also because Russia, the KGB in the 1900s, between like 1940 to 1990, basically, from the start of the KGB onward to the fall of the Soviet Union, printed off copies of the Protocols of the Elders of Zion and handed them out door to door in the Middle East, like in Palestine and Iran and that whole region. There was already latent anti-Semitism there as a result of all that, and as a result of Hitler's, ingratiating himself with Christians in the region and funding them. And on top of all of that, Israel makes of themselves there. That's why the Muslim world doesn't like Israel in the region right now. Now, what was she talking about? What does she think it is?
Today in these global institutions. And, it wasn't so long ago, maybe 20 years ago, that you would look at people, preppers, and, would say that the UN is trying to take over the world. And you would think, gosh, these people in the mountains in America, they're kind of nuts.
Right. Yeah, I think so.
Right. Like, why do they think this? And what do you see today? You see the United Nations bringing in a charter on sexual rights for the child.
No? What are you talking about? This is disgusting. She sat there and thought this up, okay? What is wrong with her? Honestly, somebody should be investigating her, like looking through her web browser history and I hope the FBI is on top of that, because that is some real disturbing that's already come out of her mouth. This is not happening. Is yet another example of her, like, finding every example of, like, someone wearing a cross necklace on a TV show and complaining about it. Except this isn't even real.
Sexual rights for the child? What does that tie into? Yep. Well, that ties into cultural Marxism, right?
Okay, first of all, Marxism there is no such thing as cultural Marxism. Marxism is an economic ideology. It doesn't work that way. And for another thing, I'm not sure what that has to do with what she's talking about here, like the UN doing that, which I don't even think they did. I doubt it, but okay. Say they did. What does that have to do with Marxism? What are you talking about? I don't understand.
Which they now try to tell you is a buzzword of the far, far, far evil right.
Yeah, it is. It's been a buzzword for the far right since Hitler. I mean, he talked about hating communists and Marxists like all the time. Are you kidding me right now? That's how he came to power, was demonizing Marxists and communists. Martin Niemöller, the leader of like the church that was oppositional to Hitler, famously wrote a poem. First, they came for the communists, and I said nothing because I wasn't a communist. Then they came for the socialists, and I said nothing because I wasn't a socialist. Then they came for the trade unionists. I said nothing because I wasn't a trade unionist. I'm sorry. I said nothing because I wasn't a trade unionist. Then they came for the Jews. I said nothing because I wasn't a Jew. Then they came for me, and there was no one left to speak for me. I mean, it's right there, okay? It's like the first two sentences. He points out all the way back then that Hitler was demonizing, executing, and imprisoning communists and Marxists, quote unquote.
Far, far, far evil right. Give me a break, okay? We don't care about you and your stupid propaganda and your labels and everything else.
I mean, like, I'm literally just quoting Hitler right now. So I don't know what to tell you.
Cultural Marxism was imported to this country by the Franklin Institute.
Do you know that Hitler actually came up with the term cultural Marxism? Seriously. He called it cultural Bolshevism. Bolshevism was the political party that eventually became the Communist Party in Russia, the Bolsheviks, I'm sorry. The Bolsheviks is what they were called. So yeah, he talked about cultural Bolshevism all the time. This is a direct quote from Hitler. I mean, she's invoking him here. She's saying that the left is like Hitler or whatever. I'm just pointing out that she's literally quoting him.
Imported to this country by the Franklin Institute shortly before the Second World War, because essentially what had happened is the Bolsheviks realized that because...
Oh, she knows the word Bolshevik. That's interesting. That tells me she probably knows she's full of shit, right?
Essentially what had happened is the Bolsheviks realized that because of the American dream, the American worker, the proletariat in this country was never going to be a reliable partner for Marxists.
I don't understand. What the hell is she talking about? Like, I'm trying to tie this all in. Is she saying that the Nazis were Bolsheviks? They weren't. They hated the Bolsheviks. That was like their rallying cry.
Proletariat in this country was never going to be a reliable partner for Marxists. So what did they do? They switched. They shifted their emphasis to cultural Marxism. And
It's just bullshit.
these are now, if you look at the Franklin Institute, who partnered, by the way, with Columbia University. What is Columbia University doing and pushing today? It ain't journalism, that's for sure.
Yes, it is. Columbia University, they're famously like an Ivy League, old institutions that existed for a long time. If Columbia University isn't credible, then who the f is credible? Columbia University is pushing Marxism?
Columbia University doing and pushing today. It ain't journalism, that's for sure, right? And so when you start to look at these relationships, you can find all of this. It's historical record. Nobody has to take my word for it.
Well, I'm not taking your word for it, and I happen to know for a fact that you're completely full of shit. I'm just, again, I'm not sure if she is the propagandist or the sucker. Which one?
But this is the origins of all those things. Saul Alinsky's Rules for Radicals and the sort of the LSD, free hippie, free love generation, the degradation and breakdown of American traditions.
Wow, okay. Wow, hippies evil. Okay, I didn't have that on my bingo card. She's saying that hippies, what, embodied Marxism or something? You know what I think the hippies embodied over anything? Freedom. The freedom to do what you want. The freedom to love others, to enjoy life and have a good time. YOLO. That's what they embodied, YOLO. And political change. No more killing. Get out of Vietnam. I think the hippies, if they stood for anything, it was those things. But no, it was cultural depravity, apparently, according to Laura. I'm sorry, I keep thinking Laura Loomer. It's Lara Logan. Lara Logan.
And the sort of the LSD, free hippie, free love generation, the degradation and breakdown of American traditions and American society. So you find those origins are rooted in a global organization. And if you take a step further back, what else do you find? Well, way back in the early 1900s, Lenin sent his emissaries all over the world to identify fissures in foreign societies.
If you don't know the history, just real basic in a nutshell, Russia in October 1917, Russia had a big revolution. It's called the October Revolution, I think. And the Bolshevik political party had a violent revolution where they overthrew the government and just murdered a bunch of people, just wholesale, started executing anybody that basically made above a certain amount every year. I mean, it was crazy. They murdered their entire middle and upper class. And, communists at the time were genuinely, actually disturbingly bad people. It was like a bad ideology, actually. We could talk about communism today and what it means and all of that, but at the time it was bad. So Lenin was the leader of the Bolshevik Party, and he led the revolution and was the first political leader in the new political order, which is like the Soviet Union. I think in 1918 is when he took over, 1917, 18, and he ruled until like 1922, I think, and then Stalin took over. Hitler got his start in like 1920, and he starts growing his own movement there in Germany. So it all kind of happened at the same time. Anyway, yeah, Lenin was just a bad person, like a really bad person, genuinely terrible. Now, what about him?
Sent his emissaries all over the world to identify fishes in foreign societies. So in America, they identified race, which is why you will see Marxism so closely associated with the civil rights movement, right? And with people of color and so on. Look at where those things are going today.
Okay, wait. Are you telling me that we shouldn't be supporting people of other races and their civil rights because that's communist? Are you for real right now? I don't even know what she's saying is true. Like, this sounds completely made up to me that Lenin planned to whatever. I mean, Lenin was only in control for like 4 years back in the 1920s. Why are we even talking about Lenin? Stalin ran things from 1922, I think, all the way to like 1955. He was the main adversary for, the better part of every, like, the mid 20th century. Aside from all of that, like, are you telling me because communists thought that racial strife was a problem in the United States that we should not fight for racial equality? If that's even true? What is wrong with you? What are you thinking? Everything out of her mouth is insane. And again, I didn't even play some of the worst stuff. God, it was really bad. Talking about babies and everything. Who comes up with this stuff without vomiting? Who sits there and thinks about this? I think about it as little as humanly possible. My God. Get help. Really. Get help. Anyway, tell me what you think about it in the comments. She is gone.